Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Juju Show number 34, bringing up the end of April here. And we have some guests with us today to talk about some Juju and the community and what's going on and show off cool stuff. Kevin, how you doing, man? How's Kubernetes world?
Doing great, dude. Doing great.
Marco, long time no see, man. Nice to have you in here. I hear you want to show off some Kubernetes stuff today.
Maybe if we have time.
Maybe if we have time. Hey, we can make time. This is our time. What are you talking about? And Sandor, man, you came back in 2 in a row. I can't believe it. We must not have done a good job of scaring you off last time.
Yeah, I survived last time, so
you survived.
Let's see if I have to get through this one as well.
All right. Well, we'll try to be careful this time. Since you're coming back, that means that we have to be nice to you now. All right. So let's start off with news of the week, and the news is releases. We've got 2 releases to talk about. One is Juju 2.3.7. So that's the latest in the stable version of 2.3 to watch out for. A bunch of bug releases, bug fixes. If you're on those bugs, if you subscribe to them, you should get the updates that they're marked fixed release, which means it's time to get your little snap to update. Or if you're on Mac, you can brew upgrade. So make sure to go grab the latest in Juju. The kind of fun other part is 2.4 got a beta release this week. So if you're using the snap, you can snap refresh and pick the beta channel, I believe it is, right? I don't know. I run the Edge. I should have tried this before I talked about it. I believe it's the beta. If not, go grab the Edge. Why not? Edge is just daily, and you can always, live on the bleeding edge of 2.4. But this will let you play with some of the new stuff that's coming. We talked about a couple weeks ago, we talked about the new feature with the cloud credential access. There's also some goal state stuff for charmers in there to play with and get their charms updated. There's also all kinds of stuff in 2.4. So a lot of things to play with. Being beta, obviously don't run on your production stuff, but the more people that test it, that play with it, that provide their feedback, the less likely we'll have to have a lot of point releases afterwards, right? So let's get our testing on, give it a try, throw your workloads and stuff at it, throw your environment at it, and let us know how it ticks. Cool. And finally, we also have, for all the charmers out there, a new charms reactive release, 0.6.3. So everyone get your updates going and get your charms rebuilt against the latest version. There's a couple of changes in here to watch out for. It looks like one thing was renamed endpoint.join to endpoint.isJoin. So just watch out for that one if you see it. Other things seem to be kind of more smaller, buggish kind of things. And what is this? Balloons is telling me, hype the folks. Folks use 2.3.7 or 2.4 beta 1 client to be ready for it. So that's the other thing. On the Juju releases, good point, Balloons, is that 2.3.7, it's the first kind of bionic aware, which is the 18.04 release of Ubuntu. So you want to make sure you're up to date on your client so that when you bootstrap, everything behaves appropriately with the latest LTS coming down the pipe. And 2.4 beta 1 is also obviously aware of the latest LTS. Stuff before that didn't know what bionic was because it was before that, right? So another reason to get your upgrade, at least your client on, so that you don't have any kind of issues. And if you do try to bootstrap or anything and it goes, I don't know what bionic is, that's your hint that you have an old Juju and it telling you exactly what it means. It does not know what bionic is. So make sure you go update your clients. Sorry. So charmers, you get new toys. Juju users everywhere get new toys. Go play with your new toys. We like toys, right?
Yes. Hey, while you're on the subject of new releases, just a heads up, the Kubernetes, I think last show we told you that Kubernetes 1.10 had come out. There's now been a refresh over the last couple of weeks. 1.10.1 is now in candidate. 1.9.7 is also up in candidate, and 1.8.11 is in candidate. So each of these point releases has been released over the last couple of weeks. It's made it through our CI system and is blessed enough to become candidate. So if you're interested in Kubernetes releases, we've got 3 point releases that have come out since our last show.
So Marco, let me ask you a question. If I wanted to say, I don't know, try out upgrading my Kubernetes to, the latest stuff, say 1.10 or whatnot, would you be able to teach me on how to do that? I've got this cluster on my MAS right now that's not 1.10 and it should be. How would I do this?
Yeah, the process is pretty straightforward. And if you guys like, I could do a quick demonstration on a live running production cluster.
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, let's see this.
What could possibly go wrong? Let me see if this works. I'm going to try to share my screen.
Come on, Hangouts, do your thing. Ah, who was that mystery bald man?
Hopefully you all see a terminal window now, at least.
I see a split up terminal.
Yeah, cool. So this is, I call it, I put it in air quotes because it's not quite like a production grade cluster. It's running on the cheap. So we have like a single etcd and a single master. So it's not really highly available resilient, but it's running workloads that are actually being accessed publicly. Like they're production and that people are using these clusters. So what I've got set up is my Juju status on top. This has been running in GCE. It's been running in GCE for quite a while now. You can see some of these workers are over 60 days old. The cluster actually predates that. It's been around for probably about 120, 200 days. So it's been upgraded by quite a few versions. And it's got some workloads running. So this is the output status of my kube control get nodes. I've got 3 nodes. They're worker 3, 5, and 7. And then I've also got a list of just some pods that are running here. So what I'm going to do in this terminal window on the left is I'm just going to upgrade the charms, make sure I have the latest charm code for each of these components. And then I'm just going to instruct it to change to version 1.10 stable. I'm not quite ready to go to the candidate channels. I'm sure the candidate channels are great. I've got a separate cluster that's much smaller than this that I might test candidate on. But for now, I'm just going to upgrade charm through each one of them. So I've got upgrade charm for, we'll do easy RSA first. Spell that correctly. Let's see if there's any changes. So I'm on revision 33 of that charm. Looks like revision 40 is the latest. I'll do etcd. That's going to move from revision 74 to revision 80. I'm going to do flannel.
And just to be clear, the order here really doesn't matter, right? You're just upgrading the charm software at all?
It doesn't matter. I've created an order in my head because I'm paranoid. I like to do things in a repeatable fashion, but the order does not really matter at all because this isn't changing any of the actual code for the running software. It's just all the operational knowledge. So the charm team that's been working on this has done a bunch of changes to support either newer features or support new code branches for the 1.10 release. So I want to get all that operational knowledge first. So I'm just going to upgrade all that charm code. So we can watch it kind of churn through here. We won't see anything move version number-wise. It's still 1.96. It'll still be 3.0.1 and 2.3.8. And the cluster won't go down by any means. We'll see it all kind of still running here. But once that's settled, I can actually start to change the new version of Kubernetes. So these are all just about done with their upgrade charms.
So that looked like that the charm update also brought down some new resources from the charm store that were the charm was relying on. It looks like it entered kind of a block state and then cleared out as it got that ready.
Yeah, so it's really just prepping any new artifacts that might be needed for an upgrade step. To my knowledge, most of those resources are actually empty. They're just really there for things like for offline deployments and stuff. So the store versions are actually just empty placeholders, basically. Gotcha. But I don't know for the Kubernetes components. I'm not sure if there are other components that actually have resources that are relied on.
Something to be aware of when you see that go by. You go, I didn't do anything with resources. Well,
yeah.
They kind of are paired up with the charm, so they kind of come along for the ride.
Very good point. So while this is all settling, I can actually start poking into the next phase of this. And so if I look at the config for any one of my services, this does actually, the order of this does actually matter to an extent. You always want to update the control plane, the master first, before any other components. So if I look at the control plane configuration for Kubernetes master, I'm going to run that and pipe it to less. So we see here that there's things like allowing privilege containers, extra arguments for the API server, a bunch of stuff for Kubernetes, which is all great. The thing that we're really concerned about is this channel configuration option. This will be different for every charm, but the Kubernetes team has done a really good job of keeping this kind of concise naming pattern. And a lot of charms have started using this channel flag because they rely on certain packaging mechanisms like Snap and stuff that makes a really nice transition between the two of them. So I'm going to change the channel from what it currently is, which is 1.9/stable to 1.10 stable. I could also change it to 1.10 candidate or 1.9 candidate to get their latest versions that are in those pockets that Kevin mentioned earlier. So I'm just going to do a Juju config Kubernetes master, set the channel to 1.10 stable. And so I can see here that mostly everything here is calmed down. We're back in an idle state, except for the master, which is just finishing its charm upgrade. Because Juju queues all these things, I can just press it. It'll just happen and queue up. And we'll kind of see what steps it takes to get there. Now, because this is a non-HA version of the deployment, we will actually lose the control plane during the upgrade, but none of the workloads will stop. It'll still keep serving its endpoints happily while it's doing the upgrade. And when I actually do the worker upgrade, again, none of those workloads will be rebooted. They'll all just simply stay in place while the control plane and other services update. So I'm gonna wait for this to finish in just a second. Yeah.
So Kevin, is there a place where I can see the list of what the valid channels would be that are currently supported or recommended that you can shoot me to?
Yeah, sure. So on any Xenial or above, so any system with Snap on it, you can do a snap info kubectl or snap info any of the Kubernetes snaps, and it will list the whole gamut of available channels and release versions.
Okay, cool. So Marco knows the magic string, but you've got a list of them for me somewhere. That's good to know.
Yeah, well, Snap does because it queries a store for them.
And the one thing I guess to point out there, I hadn't really thought about that, but you can snap info, obviously snap, so you don't run personally on your system, right? So just running that info command, I don't have to have kubectl installed on my machine or anything. I can always just get that list from any snap enabled system.
Yeah, so one of them is the Kube API server. So you can see here, there's quite a few different channels. There's 110, all the way back from 110 all the way back to 1.5. And different releases inside of each of those. So we can see that 110.1 is in candidate, 110.0 is stable, etc.
I see, and then I have to have the /stable because if I look there, I see 110.1 in several different channels there.
Yeah, so this is the candidate channel. There's a beta channel and an edge channel. And these get updated independently of each other. So edge revs kind of fast. I think Kevin probably spend, or anyone from the Kubernetes team can spend quite a lot of time explaining this whole CI process they have, which is quite elaborate. But lots of testing goes into place for each of these, and every successful test run of each of these kind of code release branches end up in Edge effectively. So it looks like they just promoted the latest stable build of 110.1 from Edge into candidate for testing.
Cool. Looks like you're blocked up, Marco.
Yeah. So while we were talking, I ran this again. So the upgrade charm finished. I have all the latest operations code, and I changed it to 110. The charms are really smart. They say this is kind of a destructive action you may want to do in different sequences. So if I had two masters, I could upgrade one and then upgrade the other. And in doing so, I would never get any downtime for my API at all. The API going down is okay for me. I'm comfortable with it. So I've got one master, and I'm just going to run Juju run action on this particular worker. I'm just going to say upgrade. What it's going to do is it's going to transition from 196 here to 110.1 and kind of go through that upgrade cycle. When that's happening, this will become unavailable. When it comes back up, you'll see all these workloads are still present. All the workers are still present. They're all in the same previous version. The thing that changed was the API. And to give you an idea of what that looks like, the output's not pretty. You can thank the Kubernetes project. If I do kubectl version, we'll see that my server version here is currently set to 196. When the upgrade completes, that'll read 110.1 or 110.0, excuse me. So I'm going to do that. I can watch the output for this status. It'll also show up here. It shows that it's now executing the upgrade, and it's walking through that upgrade cycle, installing all the new versions of the packages required, reconfiguring all those services, etc. Again, because Juju is sweet and asynchronous in nature, I can just do the same configuration option for the worker. I'll get the same result. So what will happen is the workers will all move to a blocked state requiring an upgrade to be done. And I can issue it once at a time for each worker. That way I never have more than one worker in the upgrade process. In larger clusters, we've done it kind of in groups. We'll fire off the first 20%. We'll do the next 20%. If that was successful, we'll just keep rolling the upgrades until all of them have been done in place.
So that's cool. So that action lets you target down to a single unit and allow you to do kind of a rolling upgrade process. So that's darn handy. Good work, Charmers.
Yeah, it's super neat. It's super resilient as well. It helps me keep track of things. It's not necessarily as nice if you're like living on the edge or don't necessarily care if the upgrade fails, since you can rebuild your cluster easily, there's a configuration option that says don't gate upgrades, just do them. So if you don't want to sit here and have to do each by hand for your infrastructure, have them all go at once, you can just kind of tick that configuration option and have at it. So I'm going to wait for the master to finish. This is the only kind of time lock thing. The rest can kind of happen together. You need to make sure that master is finished, it's upgraded, it's stable, and it's chilling, or else the workers may not be able to complete their upgrade cycle. And that's why we keep this bounce back and forth here.
Yeah, cool. So why don't we let that run in the background, and we'll come back and see how that turns out. It's like a cooking show. We're going to come back and see how the cake turns out after this commercial break. Although, for a commercial break, I wanted to talk about the main topic today that I wanted to highlight, and that is, I don't know, how many of you guys have used Postgres before as a database for applications and stuff? All right, and if, okay, everyone here has, great. So you all know that it's a really awesome, rock solid database. And what I love is that it really continues to innovate and build out, right? The JSON support and stuff has been, added in and recently, and adds a lot of different functionality, different kind of ways of thinking about Postgres than the old traditional, just straight up relational database system. Anyways, we use a lot of it internally. And because of that, we have a really solid Postgres charm. And I knew it was kind of solid, but I never really had used it in anger, and I hadn't realized how solid it was. And on top of that, the primary developer of the charm, he's actually gone through and started kind of a blog around the work on the Postgres charm. And I want to really kind of highlight the stuff that he's been talking about here. So did you know that the Postgres charm not just supports HA, but can actually support point-in-time recovery of remote backups? So the charm supports like sending off Wally, which is kind of a Postgres-specific way of sending off log files out remote, and then can use those as a backup mechanism to restore. And he's got a blog post that walks you through step-by-step how to deploy Postgres, leveraging Juju storage so you can get real persistent data, backends for the Postgres databases that are on there. You can enable the kind of Wally replication. You can send it off to Swift or to S3, specifying where it needs to stick those logs in that remote location. And then using actions, much like this upgrade, you actually get the ability to manually trigger backups, and you can script it, you can do it manually, and I think it will do it automatically based on config as well. And not just to perform the backups, but then to list them out where you can see things like when the backups were from. And then finally, there's another action for actually restoring those backups. So here you can see down here, this is a sample action using Wally restore, where you specify where you're going to restore from. And so if your whole Postgres cluster, or your whole system were just bomb out and blow up, you can bring up new Postgres instances in another region, another cloud, or whatever. You can configure it to be able to pull across where those Wally files are and actually restore exactly to that point in time that your backup was performed at. And it's just an example of kind of really encapsulating all those best practices and all that operational know-how. An idiot like me could go through and actually do this, whereas up until before this, I'd never actually tangled with the actual commands to set up Wally replicate Wally. It's like log replication. I forget the actual. There's a proper term for this, and I'm butchering.
It's the write-ahead log.
Write-ahead log. There you go. So you actually ship those out, and so I hadn't actually done it till I grabbed the charm, and then what was awesome was it was just Juju actions away from me. On top of that, the charm also supports, like I was mentioning, Juju storage, and he walks you through how to properly use storage to get a persistent volume, and not just like to get a volume, but then to be able to tear that down and redeploy and reattach to the existing volumes, right? So it's one thing to be like, hey, I need more than the disks that come with me when I get a VM from the cloud, so okay, cool, you can get a persistent disk, but then and hey, now that you've got it, let's actually leverage it properly so that if you need to do disaster recovery, if AWS decides that instance needs to go down because it's being, relocated or whatnot, you can easily come back and pick right up where you left off. And so here you can see where he imports the file system from a previous deploy and attaches it, and Postgres picks up and running, and all your data's there. And the third one he's got as a really great example of using cross-model relations to be able to connect a Postgres client charm, which was another thing I didn't know we had. We actually have a Postgres client charm, which will automatically do the kind of work of creating a database, and you can SSH to it and connect and use PSQL right from that remote terminal there, and do everything you need to do for your database. You can get your connection strings and all that. So an example of setting up, a client who got something deployed in Singapore, another one in Sydney. The author here, he's out in the Asia area, so he likes to use the regions on the other side of the world. But anyways, what I wanted to highlight this because one, this is really well written material, and I hadn't seen it before, and I kind of like to think that I generally keep in the loop of this stuff. And two, that if you are ever looked at using Postgres, like you really should look at the charm and look into what all it does, because it does a lot more than you may think. It's definitely a lot more than just, bringing up and running my, my SQL server or whatever. It has a lot more production quality capabilities there. And if you're writing charms, I would highly recommend that you look at what he's done here, because I think it would be a really good model for a lot of the other charms we have out there of going beyond just the install and configuration, but into then what are the future operations that we really need to encapsulate. And this is where I find that Juju really shines, like this Kubernetes upgrade example, like doing a point-in-time recovery of a Postgres database. It's that next level operations of something long running where you're still saving time and enabling more than just the Postgres expert in the company to be able to leverage the tools and puts everything kind of on nice rails. So if you're working on a charm for stuff, try to think about those. How do I do my backups and recoveries? How do I create new users? How do I audit what's running and all that kind of stuff? As well as, he doesn't have a blog post on this, but there's actually support for getting Postgres specific metrics out with the Telegraph charm. So not only can I deploy Postgres, but now if I deploy Telegraph and send it off to Influx or Prometheus, I can get things like my transaction counts and my connection counts and all this kind of stuff that is really important for monitoring and keeping an eye on your Postgres health in your production environment. So those kind of things were just like, they're fine touches on this charm that I really appreciated. So I wanted everyone to kind of, hey, go check out the blog posts, go try it out, and think about what we can all do to kind of learn from the example here, because it's some really, really sweet stuff. And maybe everyone else already knew it, and Rick was just behind the times. What I would really love, and a call out to everyone who watches the show or whatever, is if you know of any other blog posts like this that I may have missed, that kind of really walk through real world examples of using charms to make the operations of something, simpler and more manageable and all that. I'd love to see more. I'd like to celebrate these things more. Maybe I can highlight, your blog post or your buddies or whatever on a future Juju show. I think that would be a really kick-ass thing to do. Cool. Did everyone else know this? Did I just miss it?
I mean, I've known it because I've used a lot of that charm in the past, and I did not know that you can do all the cross-model relation stuff now. So that's, I figured it may have worked, but I've never actually seen it done with Postgres. I think it's super cool though.
Definitely, it's a good case of Postgres is one of those, you stand up your pillar of Postgres and you connect the world to it. So cross-model relations make a lot of sense for that, where the world could be literally the world and get all your data in there. Cool. Well, how are we doing on our upgrade, Marco?
Yeah, so about as soon as we switched away, actually, the master finished its upgrade cycle. But so just to pick up where we left off, Kubernetes master is now 110.0. If we don't want to trust the Juju status, we can do kube control version again. Previously, it was 196. It's now 110.0. The workers are still all 196. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the masters. I'm just going to say Juju upgrade. Sorry, not upgrade. Juju run action. I'm going to run it against the first worker. I'm just going to tell it to do an upgrade. I can sit, I can wait, I can watch this, I can watch the status. I can also do a Juju show action output for this. I can see that it's currently running. I can kind of watch this or wait for it to complete. We can see the status move here. So this node just moved into a not ready state. So it's finishing its upgrade cycle. It stays not ready for probably about 30 to 45 seconds. It moves really quickly back into a ready state. The upgrades for workers is extremely fast. In that time, none of the workloads that were running there were rebooted. None of the workloads that were issued were becoming available. It was just the kubelet portions themselves being upgraded. Nothing with the Docker runtime or the container runtime was touched. And so as a result, it's really a no downtime upgrade for workloads, which is super exciting. So we can see this is now active and idle again. Kubernetes workers running. It says ready now in Kubernetes itself, and it's version 1.10.0. The other two nodes are still 1.9.6. So I'm just going to rinse and repeat for each of my units. I've got unit 5 and unit 7. I'm going to do these both at the same time. I'm feeling pretty confident that the upgrade will complete as expected. And probably about the next 60 seconds, this will be a 1.10.0 cluster ready to rock the world with the latest stable version of Kubernetes.
Cool. I can see the version number on the one unit up in your bottom right quadrant of your terminal there. I see that 110 there on that one unit. Oh, now we got 2, and we got 3. Oh, it's like I'm seeing magic.
Yeah, and then once the majority of those units have been upgraded, the Juju version status here will also reflect that. And there it is. So yeah, there's definitely a little bit of lag between, when you have an inconsistent version state, Kubernetes keeps track of a much finer granularity of versions than Juju overall. But again, this is just a quick, hey, what version am I running on right here? This is really the true nitty gritty of what's actually on the system. And so this last one should go to ready state now, and that's it. The 1.10.0 version's done. It's about a 10-minute process all through and through, from upgrading the charms through to upgrading the actual application, the Kubernetes itself. And it really does not incur any downtime from your workloads running, which is super phenomenal across public, private, cloud, and bare metal.
Sweet. Thanks for showing that, Marco.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've given you all kinds of cool stuff to look at today. That's it. Anyone have anything else they want to bring up before we go? No? All right. Well, we'll see everyone in 2 weeks. Until then, have fun with all your new toys. Talk to you later.
See ya.